Nikki Haley said a lot of unkind things. DeSantis did for a little while. No, hold on.
That's the primary. And she's since come around and bent the knee.
What's going on, you guys? Today we have Brian Tyler Cohen destroying Cenk Uygur. Cenk Uygur is simping for MAGA like always. Brian Tyler Cohen is going in until Cenk Uygur begs him to stop. Let's go.
The doubt, but you're doing it here.
No, I'm not. So first off, on all the things that Trump did after the election, I was accurate about that too. I said, no, Trump will do anything to stay in power. And he did. So I'm not 1% naive about Trump. So, but invading Greenland and Panama is comical. If he goes to do it, I will guarantee you that a huge portion of his base will actually turn on him. And because it's freaking comical. So, and here I'm not giving the benefit of the doubt to Trump. I'm giving some benefit of the doubt on some issues to his base. In fact, Brian, look at what's happened since we last talked. This absurd comical conversation about invading Greenland is a tiny minor thing that's not actually going to happen. But what actually did happen is a giant war between Steve Bannon and Elon Musk broke out. So if you're saying, well, they're a monolith, well, which one's the monolith, Bannon or Musk? Because they now absolutely hate each other. Bannon for all of his evils, and there are plenty of those, and he's massively anti-immigrant, and I'm an immigrant. I'm, again, wide-eyed about that. I'm not naive 1% about that. But he's talking about raising corporate taxes. He's talking about raising taxes on the rich. And he's talking about how Elon Musk is a donor and that we shouldn't give into that kind of corruption. So now, on the other hand, I might agree more with Elon Musk on H-1B, but you can't just do binary brain and go, me hate all MAGA. Well, which ones? Because they now massively disagree.
But the through line between both of them is that all of the glue that holds both factions, the Bannon faction and the Elon together, is that they have an allegiance to Donald Trump. That is the only, again, that's the only long-standing principle between all of these people.
That's not remotely true, because if that was true, Bannon would have bowed his head to Musk and said, "Okay, well, he is a great donor to Donald Trump."
I hear what you're saying, but look.
That's just a fact, Brian. You can't deny it.
I hear what you're saying with regard to that, but Trump gets a pass in a way that every single underling beneath him doesn't get.
So here we have Cenk Uygur again, not wanting to look at the facts, not wanting to look at, okay, well, who is on. What brings these two together? What brings Steve Bannon and Elon Musk together? It is Donald Trump. You can't sit here and fall for that trick. You are getting pulled in to fascism. You are getting pulled into allowing this to happen. They've found out that you don't necessarily have any values that place you as a liberal. So they're going to get you with misdirection. That is how they're pulling everyone in there. They're getting everyone they can. And then you end up, next thing you know, now you're wearing, a Make America Great Again shirt. And that's how they get you.
Wait a minute, Brian. So that's obviously true, but did Biden not get the same pass for a long, long time as his brain was melting? All of the Democrats were like, no, he's young and dynamic. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
I think that you prove yourself wrong because you were out there. But I'm giving you credit here because you were out there. And the fact that people like you could come out and say that Biden should not be running for re-election. Of course. But look, the majority of people are going to.
So you're admitting that the Democrats are also a cult.
I'm saying that for a lot of the party, they are going to stand behind the president as he's facing re-election against Donald Trump. That's
okay.
Clear,
you're saying
clear
the
as
same
day.
exact thing.
But nobody.
We have to blindly support our maniacal president who can't even talk or think.
I'm saying nobody is willing or allowed to say an ill word of Donald Trump, even within these so-called competing factions between Bannon and Elon Musk.
That's not remotely true, Brian. That's not true. Look at the two primaries. Nikki Haley said a lot of unkind things. DeSantis did for a little while. No, hold on.
That's the primary.
And
she's since come around and bent the knee.
No way. Now you're misleading. They had a real primary and Trump crushed them. We did not have a real primary. All we had was a bunch of jackasses who went and said, how dare you oppose Biden? To me, to Marianne Williamson, to Dean Phillips. Forgive
That's
me and
true.
Marianne. To Dean Phillips, a sitting U.S. congressman, they were like, he is being disloyal. We all have
I
to
agree
think
with that. That's true.
Joe Biden is great. Joe Biden is young and dynamic. You tell me that's not a bubble, brother? So, but what I'm trying to explain to both sides is you're both in bubbles. Please, for God's sake, think objectively. And this is the number one request that I would have of people on our side, which is focus on policy. Don't get into this cult of personality. Oh, that's a Democratic leader, or cult of personality. That's Trump. We have to oppose everything Trump is doing. No, wait a minute. What is the policy? And if they say something that we agree with, for God's sake, take yes for an answer. In the middle of Trump, imagine.
And this is actually sort of problematic, as Cenk Uygur is putting it. The rhetoric that he's using is saying, let's focus on policy. Trump may have, just because it's Trump, let's not discount the policies on what he's doing. But we can see that he is undoing a lot of stuff. He is undoing a lot of things and setting up the conservatives to run in the same way that we had Reagan do the same thing, where Reagan was going to complain about something. Reagan complained about the debt, right? For instance, we have the debt that was in trillions and trillions, and Reagan said, we're going to complain about that. That's how we're going to get people on our sides. And then he complained, got elected, started to cause the debt even worse, set it back even worse to whenever. Guess what happens? As soon as as soon as we have progressives or liberals put into the office again after Reagan, well, now we have to cut spending on on progressive movements or on community, up building, different like community outreach things, so that we can now help the debt. And that's where it's happening right now. We have Trump who's complaining about the groceries. That's how he got everyone in. And what's going on with these groceries? I don't.
We get a couple of wins. I know what the great.
You're not going to get any pushback from me. I agree with that. I would love, look, if by some miracle we see the minimum wage raise, if we see pro-union legislation passed, if we see the anything that happens that I want to see, I'm not going to trash it just by virtue of the fact that it was signed into law by a Republican president. I still it's the agenda, not the politicians, that I'm advocating for, and however we get there is perfectly acceptable to me. But I guess going back to the initial point, the issue I have here is that while even people, yeah, sure, you'll get pilloried by a majority of the party who, of course, wants to see Joe Biden in the strongest position as he heads toward an imminent election with Donald Trump. But that is different than there being zero people, literally none right now in the Republican Party,
right,
under the Bannon banner or under the Musk banner. Any of those competing factions, nobody will say an ill word of Donald Trump, and nobody ultimately, at the end of the day, has any allegiance to anything other than whatever Donald Trump says. The Bannon people are not going to abandon. The Bannon people are not going to abandon Donald Trump by virtue of any policy position that he has, in the same way that the Elon people are not going to abandon him either.
Bannon said that Trump's position on H-1B was wrong, so you're totally counterfactual. So look, guys,
and not a single person will abandon him by virtue of it.
But first of all, his campaign, his second term hasn't even started, and already there's a giant civil war within his followers. You don't want to open your eyes because you're thinking Trump. We all have to hate Trump, and we all have to hate all of them. And so my job is to drive my audience to hate them and to support blindly ridiculous politicians like Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and Karen Bass and Gavin Newsom. No, open your eyes. We have to fight for left-wing policies. Karen Bass and Gavin Newsom didn't give that to us. Joe Biden didn't give that to us. So, and I'm not naive enough to think that Trump, out of the goodness of his heart, is going to do left-wing policies. We got to.
There we have it, you guys. We have Cenk Uygur, who again will sit here all day and tell you how we need to focus on the left-wing policies, how it's policies that's going to win the people over. It's going to be policies. This is going to be it. But, let's even go a little bit deeper. What about the culture? What about a left-wing culture? What about a culture of putting people first, putting the people first? And it seems like, his stuff, he doesn't even want a union for his own, for TYT. He was very much against that. He didn't want that to happen. He's very much against these cultural items, left-wing, progressive movements, to even be implemented in his own life. He doesn't want to deal with that, quote unquote, with a burden, I guess is how he would see it. So how can we expect someone who rejects culture, progressive culture as a value system, even much less policies, to really be to stand firm on policies and to even know what he's talking about policies? Let me know what you guys think in the comments. It's Brian Tyler Cohen, destroying Cenk Uygur. It's another day in the progressive way.